Welcome to Celtic State of Mind. I'm John Dykes, and today I am delighted to be joined once again by JP Mason. You're slurping something out of your King Tut's Wawa Hut mug. What has the week held for you this week, JP? You're into Celtic in a big way, but you also are entrenched constantly in the world of music. How's your week been?
Aye, good man. So last Thursday we beat Raith Rovers, which we talked about last week, which was the hope and wish that we were going into that game with. And then at the weekend I went down to Manchester with my pal Martin Melly of the 20-Minute Tims fame, and we went to see Manchester United against Aston Villa. What a rip roaring, not free scoring, not boring either game, but if you're a Man United fan, probably not the best result. But got tickets on the Friday night, by the way, through Twitter. Just put up a tweet saying, went down to Manchester, going to a gig, looking for tickets. Guy got back to me, absolute hero, just got back to me saying, get in touch. So I got in touch, and he goes, I've got 2 tickets for the game tomorrow. Me and my brother can't make it. We'll give you them for 40 quid each. And I was like, what? That's amazing. And next thing, he's like, have you got a Manchester United membership number? And I went, yeah, I do. Sent him the membership number. Next thing, bang, 2 tickets in my Manchester United account. And I had tickets for the game. Simple as that. I PayPal'd him the money, easy as. And then I thanked him the other day, despite the result. I thanked him and, just said thanks so much. And he was like, oh yeah, well, always happy to help out like a true football fan, blah, 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 face value, the thing and everything else. And I was like, that's really cool, because the tickets for that game on Saturday on resale sites like Viagogo and all that were going for north of 150, 200 quid. So really cool. And I really think Celtic should adopt something similar. Do you know what I mean? I mean, not only are you getting membership money from people, and I know Russell's touched on this before as well, to have like a sort of Celtic membership where you pay a monthly fee. But if you were able to then get that sort of thing happening as well, where you could get season tickets for people that can't go, because let's face it, in this current climate, there's people not going to the games. Did Kev not say the other day this whole row was empty? So that could be taken by people that want to go to the games. So yeah, that was that. And then we went to see the Cortiners at Old Trafford cricket ground with Johnny Marr supporting.
Johnny Marr, yes.
Yeah, which it kind of felt like when Johnny Marr was playing, it kind of felt like it was a Johnny Marr headline set, because he was just playing loads of Smith songs. So you had 50,000 people singing "There Is a Light That Never Goes Out" and this charming man and all that. It was absolutely unbelievable. And then we hot-footed it back up the road on Sunday to get the train to go to Celtic Park for not exactly a feast of football, shall we say, against Dundee United. So yes. There were 2 very hungover and tired people in Celtic Park on Sunday, and one of them was me. And I can't believe we didn't win. I mean, all the chances we had and everything else, but I know that's been spoken about already this week. But
yeah, it has been, JP, but you and I haven't had the opportunity, because this is my first appearance on ACSOM this week also. So there's a few wee things we will cover. But on your point of the membership, we've spoken about that a few times on a Celtic State of Mind, and it's like you say, it is a no-brainer. I mean, if you bring in, as we have in the pre-season here, a big name from Australia and a big name from Japan, you're going to have, I mean, we've noticed that with regards to the people tuning into ACSOM, you can see from where your viewers are watching. And that's not just on the kind of chat listens, you can see it on a heat graph on your analytics. So you see there's a huge interest in Celtic for obvious reasons. There is anyway in Australia, but I think it's been increased since Postecoglou came in, and of course in Japan due to Kyogo. So you've got a whole host of opportunities there, not just to hope that people go onto your website and maybe want to pay the postage and packaging to Australia and Japan, but there is the opportunity to have membership schemes. And this goes right out to our fan base in America as well, whereby you can contribute to Celtic by paying an annual fee, and you get a whole wealth of different content, etc., specifically for members, discounts, etc. There's a whole package that could be built, and we're a global brand, so we should be doing stuff like that, JP. I think it's been a long time coming, and hopefully the club are, as they suggested there when we pitched it to them at the beginning of the season, looking into building a membership scheme. I mean, David Slight, who contributes to Celtic, a Celtic State of Mind rather, as well as Celtic, from time to time, he is a member of various clubs that he has an affinity with all over Europe. He's a member with them. So I know that he's a member of St. Pauli, for example, and there are others. So yeah, absolutely buy into that. But then you come up the road and you watch Celtic against Dundee United. Tonight, we will be watching another European game against Leverkusen, Bayer Leverkusen. And I'm going to have to put this out here because there's no hiding place. I have hosted every single match day for Celtic State of Mind this season. Therefore, I've not been in the stadium. Now, you were telling me there about season tickets, etc. I know that it's frowned upon to swap season tickets, isn't it, at Celtic Park, etc. But my season tickets haven't been utilised to their maximum due to the fact that I want to do the match day stuff. Thankfully, Kevin Graham's going to stand in for me tonight, so I will be at the game. Yeah, you can call me a plastic fan and everything else.
Just when was the last time you were at Celtic Park? And this is not like, obviously there has been a pandemic, so that has to be taken into consideration. But when was your last game? It
was the last game before lockdown.
Oh, then March.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, that was the last game, JP.
Wow.
So there's obviously a reason for that. I'm trying through the media contacts at the club to find some kind of solution so that I can do the broadcast and also be at the game. At the moment, that's not possible, so we're just going to have shots about. So Kevin Graham is standing in for me tonight. He will be joined by Russell Boyce, Lawrence Conley and Laura Bradburn, the Fantastic Four, I'm calling them. Now, I'm going to start off tonight by talking about the fixture. One of their danger men being Jeremy Frimpong. The fact that we should have all the data and all the analytics in the world about that player for obvious reasons, JP. But the cautionary tale would be that, well, we should have had the same kind of level of detail on Sviatchenko, yet he was able to nullify Eduard over 2 games and we weren't able to get in about him. And in the first day of the season, Craig Gordon was only beaten once and Gary Mackay-Stephen opened the scoring for Hearts. So it doesn't always work like that. But you think going into the game, we know plenty about Frimpong. How did you feel about his comments in relation to the fact that he wasn't really pushing for a move, he wasn't ready to move Celtic, but when the deal came in and the offer came in, it was one he couldn't refuse? What did you think of that?
Well, it kind of goes against what we've been told, doesn't it? I don't have any insight further than that, further than what's been said by both the player and the former manager. I mean, it kind of feels like a no-brainer if you know, as much as, you know, you or I, if we were playing for Celtic, wouldn't want to necessarily move on, you know, as long as we were well compensed for, you know, playing and doing our job. But as a guy who, like him, who has little or no connection to Celtic, has only been in the door, a year, 18 months, something like that. You know, when a Bundesliga side come in for you and probably wave a fairly big wage in front of you, I certainly can't blame him for doing what he did. You know, I mean, he's not really one of these guys that was going to be, quote unquote, there for the 10, you know. That would have meant little or nothing to him. I'm sure he would have enjoyed it if he was here and we would have got some good sound bites from him as a result of it. But but it is quite weird that, you know, obviously we were told there were several players that wanted to leave, and then everybody sort of surmised when he left in January that he must have been one of those players. And then for him to come out and say, well, I wasn't pushing for a move, maybe it could be a bit of both. He might be just trying to sort of paint himself in a good light, because ultimately by saying that, it doesn't necessarily mean to say that, you know, he hasn't agitated for a move, because he may well have done, but just kept it on the QT. And, you know, by him coming out and saying, well, actually, I didn't want to move, you know, I still, you know, I mean, I don't want to be cynical about it, but it's quite good to have Celtic fans as currency after you've left the club, because we're a massive club with a massive support. and a big amount of people that follow the club online. So it doesn't do ex-Celtic players, even if they're at other clubs, any harm to have that, to be favoured by Celtic rather than being not favoured by Celtic.
Dembele.
Moussa Dembele, yeah. I'm pretty sure Moussa Dembele isn't the guy that runs that Twitter account. In fact, I'm almost certain that it isn't. I'm sure he's like fine with whoever it is that runs it, courting the Celtic stuff and everything else. And I'm sure he does have a genuine affection for Celtic, but not to the point that he's sitting on Twitter tweeting away like every time he gets a mention from Celtic, like, oh yeah, remember this and all that. I mean, come on. We're not that.
It's brand management. It's brand management.
We're not up the back, do you know what I mean? So it's quite funny to see all that happening and play out.
Now, the thing with Frimpong, as I say, we should know all about him. I remember him breaking into the side. He was the first player in a long time, JP, that got me off my seat. And that was before, obviously, we did ACSOM match day bulletins and I was allowed to go to the games. So he was getting us off our seat. He changed his style of play a fair bit. I think he seemed to stagnate a wee bit. But again, he was playing in an underperforming Celtic side at that time. Mm-hmm. But he got that tremendous move. And I think that we do know all about him as fans and what he can bring to a football side. So that begs the question, who goes toe-to-toe with Jeremy Frimpong? I mean, I remember one of the best performances was probably the League Cup final where we were awful against Rangers. We won 1-0 and Frimpong gets sent off. Brilliant performance by Fraser Forster that day. But Frimpong seemed to be the only out ball. And he never lost the ball. He never seemed to lose the ball throughout the whole game, and it was unfortunate that he ended up getting sent off. But he showed in a game like that the kind of damage he can do to a side and the weapon he can be. Tonight, against us, who goes toe-to-toe? We know that Juranovic is injured. That was confirmed yesterday. He's injured. Bolingoli's not in the European squads. Taylor's injured. It leaves us with a couple of options. It leaves us with the option of Montgomery, who has impressed, although I think Dundee United was, below his standard so far. And the other player, who we've only seen a few minutes of, would be Liam Scales, and I don't think tonight is the ideal opportunity to throw him in for a start. So who do you go up against Frimpong with?
It's not the ideal opportunity, but it may be a necessity to play him. He's obviously match fit. We've discussed that before because he was playing regularly before he came to us. So he's not like way behind in terms of training and fitness and everything else. We saw a cameo of him against Raith Rovers, was it? It was, wasn't it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that. I mean, it's very difficult to judge a player on so little minutes. But, I received more than a few texts from Celtic supporting friends saying, "Oh, Scales looks okay. Like good sort of control. Wants to have the ball." So I wouldn't have any fears about it. I certainly don't think it's something. It's a bit of a baptism of fire, but I think he would possibly thrive on it, and maybe it could be the night that makes him as a. Sometimes Celtic players need that kind of night that kind of. I don't know. I was talking about Nir Bitton and I was thinking back to Nir Bitton's 8 years at Celtic, and can you really think of a night when Nir Bitton has cemented himself in Celtic fans' hearts and minds for something that he's done, and all you can think of is all the mistakes that he's made that have cost us big time, So
that point in folks' eyeballs.
That's nonsense, and the rugby tackle and Morelos and all that. So anyway, Scale. This could be a night. Although his Celtic career's in its infancy, this could be a night that, kickstarts it and in a big way, because the great thing about Celtic at times is that we find ourselves in these arenas, our own obviously tonight, but these arenas to give players a platform to showcase what they can do. And as well as I do that so many people have talked about, Scales can do the job. He's a good player. All these Irish-based supporters who have been watching him play. So if you give him an opportunity to be the best player that he can be tonight in this arena, then that goes a long way to, making people confident about him going forward. And I don't think it's, I think Ange Postecoglou has hesitated to start Montgomery away at Amon Vale. So how would he suddenly be okay to start in a Europa League fixture against a Bundesliga team when he's going to be going up against a potent weapon in Frimpong? I think when we had Frimpong, we just relied too much upon him, and I remember quite a few games it was just like, give the ball to Frimpong, see what he can do. And you're like, this guy's a wee kid, he's not Maradona. Do you know what I mean? Like, I remember hearing and seeing that a few times and witnessing it with my own eyes. It was just kind of like, all right, well, we've got Frimpong, so we'll just give the ball to him and see what he can do. And I mean, obviously, I think he'll be in a far more disciplined side within a German coaching setup. So what they do with him and have done with him will be interesting to see tonight.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with Scales, your point that you make there, I'm thinking back to the coming of age of certain Celtic players. I remember Cadiz being thrown in against Barcelona, Tony Watt, Barcelona, John Kennedy, Barcelona, David Marshall, Barcelona. I don't know. We played them quite a lot of times over a period of a few years. But you're right. It sometimes is the making of the player. And I know not all of those players went on to have sparkling Celtic careers, but for that moment, they went out and they absolutely performed to the maximum of their ability. Is that night tonight? I think it's one of the big question marks about the lineup, and it will be interesting to see who he shows his faith in. I felt a wee bit sorry for Montgomery because I've been singing his praises, JP, but I don't think he was at his absolute best, although he did take a dull one himself against Dundee United.
He did, He was very wasteful with the ball, only probably outdone by Ismaila Soro in terms of giving the ball away and just being reckless in possession and trying to regain possession as well. Montgomery looked really hesitant, which was strange because he hasn't looked like that most of the time. Whether it was pressure, I don't know. Being at Celtic Park, I mean, sometimes you forget the weight of expectation that has been put. Basically, because, he was introduced to the team, correct me if I'm wrong, but in a time where there was no fans, and now there are fans. He did come in at the side last season, or is this?
He did. Yeah, you remember he played against Livy at home in January, and then he made an appearance later on in the year against Hibs.
Yeah, so suddenly you've got 55,000 people or whatever, and they're all kind of on your back, and the pressure's ramped up, and it's like, well, we have to get a win here, and we just didn't. I didn't see anything really in that Celtic side. I know we hit the bar 3 times, and you can point to that, but we were discussing it after the game. We probably didn't deserve to win that game. Based on our performance overall, I don't think we deserved to win it. Dundee United weren't amazing by any stretch. They all pointed to the fact that there was a penalty shout, completely ignoring the foul on Starfelt that led up to that penalty shout. But it's like, all right, well, we'll look at that one, but we won't look at that one. It's like, okay, there's so many Dundee United fans on Twitter all posting that clip. And I'm like, you're posting a clip that has a clear foul on a Celtic player before the foul on your player. So, yeah. But I think Montgomery, I don't think tonight is a night for him. I may get proved wrong, and maybe this is his night instead of Scales. But I think on the back of Sunday, he should probably be protected given his age. I mean, Scales has got 4 years on him. So if you're choosing between Scales and Montgomery tonight, then surely it's Scales.
It's going to be interesting to see, JP. I'm going to get as many people involved as I always try to do in the comment section. First of all, we've got Bold, Highland Paddy, and hello from a cold and windy Cork. Yes, hello. And it's cold and windy here in Dalkeith as well, JP, and hopefully the rain isn't so bad tonight once I get into that game. Scott Howe. Right, scrap all the negativity. Come on the hoops, let's do this. That isn't a response to what we've been talking about. JP Scott commented pretty early on in the broadcast, and I'm just catching up with the comments. Just to go back onto a comment that was made, I think yesterday or the day before, there is absolutely no favouritism in relation to who comes up in the comments field. I can categorically state that as the fact, because if I'm not on the broadcast, I am the guy on the buttons behind the scenes, and it's simply when it's relevant, I'll bring it up. Simple as that. So we've not got any favourites. But if you want to become part of the ACSOM cult, then obviously what you can do is get onto our website, acsom.net, and register. And obviously if you buy merchandise, we'll have your contact details as well. And what we're going to be doing going forward, JP, is we're going to be doing broadcast exactly like this, but we'll be bringing in people who obviously watch the show. We won't put it out live just to protect everybody in relation to anything that might be said, yes. But we will be putting out the shows after the event. So you can come in, we'll do a bulletin with somebody like JP and myself, somebody else, and a couple of the ACSOM viewers, and we'll get you involved that way as well. Another way, obviously, is by subscribing on YouTube. And today is the final day of September, so it's the final day of the concept jersey giveaway. As of next month, you'll be in line to win a signed and framed Bobby Lennox print. It's a beautiful art print of Bobby Lennox playing down Saltcoats Beach wearing his Lisbon Lions jersey, and he signed it for us, so that's brilliant. It's beautifully framed. We'll be giving away that next month. But this jersey here, and JP has seen it in the flesh, and he will concur that is not grey, it's green. Yeah. But the lighting in here makes everything look a wee bit grey. I'm not as grey as I look on the screen either, but this is the Andy Tom jersey because it's a German-made jersey. It's got the ACSOM embroidery both sides. Andy Tom is relevant today because he played for both Bayer Leverkusen and Celtic. And we're going to be giving that away as soon as JP comes up with a question. So I'm putting you on the spot. Whenever you come up with a question, we'll fire it out. We'll give it away live. That's the final jersey. Everybody else who's won jerseys and platinum discs and everything else will be getting their prizes as well. So moving on from that, JP, we've been looking at a wee bit at our opponents, and I think it's interesting to bring up Gerardo Suwan. I hope that's how you pronounce his name. He's the manager, of course, of our opponents tonight. Now, he was sounded out about the Celtic job whilst he was in charge of young boys, who he led to two league titles and the Champions League group stages. He's obviously gone on to tonight's opponents, and he is sitting second in the Bundesliga behind only Bayern Munich. So he's obviously a fantastic manager who seems to be on the rise, JP. But Celtic did inquire about him, believe it or not, during that period of 106 days, I think it was, when we were looking for a new manager. But it leads us on to our own manager. That's the reason I'm bringing that up. And there was a point earlier on the comment section. Forgive me, I can't bring that particular comment up because it was so early and it's been put right to the back of the queue. But the point was based on Angie's comments the other day, where he was bringing up the kind of narrative of the media, the condescending nature of the questions, etc. And I was looking at that thinking, right, okay, he's putting it out there. Or perhaps, is he feeling the pressure, JP? Is he feeling a bit isolated? And it made me wonder about, obviously, tonight's opponents and the fact that Surwan was on a shortlist of sorts. And it made me start to think about the Eddie Howe deal and the collapse of that deal. But not because I want to labour that, but because of the fact that he was given, or he had been offered, carte blanche in terms of the staffing, right down to the director of football. Yet we've got Ange Postecoglou in here at the moment, and he still doesn't have any of his own staff. You know, tell me Anton McElhone, formerly of Tottenham Hotspur's, Greenock Morton, etc., was someone that Ange identified. So it is quite a concern for me that he is cutting somewhat an isolated figure at Celtic Park at the moment. Am I looking too much into that, JP? Is there room for concern? We've all seen the rumours flying about WhatsApp in the last few days. We're not going to labour those either because I can't speak to them. I can't speak to them being accurate. Is he a man under immense pressure? Is it starting to show, do you think, in Ange?
I didn't see his presser yesterday, so I can't comment on his current body language. I read some comments somewhere, maybe somebody retweeted it or whatever, of what he was saying about, you know, he thinks that there's been a few sort of condescending questions aimed his way at, you know, him possibly not understanding the magnitude of the job that he's taken on. I think he's well aware of that, and was well aware of that before he came. I mean, he's not an idiot, you know what I mean? It's not as if he's arrived at Celtic thinking that he's arrived at, you know, Stalybridge Celtic or something like that. You know, he knows who Celtic are and knows what the club are all about and the weight of expectation. And he also will know what happened last season and what he's trying to sort of claw back, so to speak, in terms of a points deficit and everything else. So my concern is, and some people don't share this concern, but my concern is that the whole place just seems so disjointed at the moment. You just hope that the team and the squad are together with Postecoglou, because ultimately that is the main thing, isn't it? Like, I mean, the footballing department, albeit is fractured because we don't have Postecoglou's people in place and everything else, but I think that all happened because it was all so rushed. At least with the Eddie Howe thing, there was a lot of planning in place. To suddenly hire all these people all at the same time, that just doesn't happen in football, especially when you're bringing in somebody. Let's face it, it was a bit last minute, wasn't it? It doesn't seem like it was like this long-term thing, as much as they say it was plan B. So we're currently in the situation where, he doesn't have any of his own staff. There's not the employees brought in different parts of the club in terms of, the recruitment and sports science, all the rest of it. We've lost the CEO. There's still a big, huge question mark over what happened there. So, I mean, the last thing you want is the manager being hung out to dry. The guy suddenly has to take the rap and take the blame for everything else that's gone on at the club prior to and while he's been at the club, because I think that's hugely unfair. Yes, people will point to, we should have beat Livingston. We should have a team capable of beating Livingston. We've had teams capable of beating Livingston before and haven't done it. So I think that's a little unfair. Why that keeps happening, I don't know. Dundee United at the weekend, again, the injuries disrupted everything. We lost McCarthy, we lost Juranovic. A stronger, healthier Celtic squad could possibly have coped with those losses on Sunday and gone on to take the 3 points. But we are currently in such a fragile state with so many people out and so many new players, as Kev's pointed out a couple of times. The appearances ratio for Celtic players on the park at the moment are minuscule in comparison to the season campaigners that we've lost over the last couple of seasons. So I think there's definitely got to be a balance there. I mean, tonight is such a big game for us in terms of, I mean, the Betis game really restored, for me, it restored a little bit of pride anyway. I didn't feel shame at getting beat 4-3 off Real Betis in Spain. I felt shame sitting here on my own watching us getting absolutely tonked 4-1 off Sparta Prague.
Yeah,
there was nothing. There was no pride in that defeat or either of the 4-1s. So this season is all about restoring pride. So if we go out tonight and we, earn a brave draw, in our current state would be a great result. Even if we were to get beat, but we got beat, giving it our all and laying gloves on them, then so be it. I mean, they've got to be realistic. They're second in the Bundesliga. We at this moment in time, in our current state, have absolutely no right to get anything from this game tonight. But in just the same way, if you go back to Brendan Rodgers' first season when we played Man City, we had absolutely no right to get anything from Man City at Celtic Park, but yet we did. Nobody gave us a hope in hell before that game. A lot of early sort of debutants at that time, I think, mixed with seasoned professionals. However, everybody was like, well, Man City have won every single game so far this season. Nobody's taken a point off of them in the Premiership. And they come to Celtic Park and, get away with a 3 each. Still one of my favourite nights at Celtic Park, by the way. Even though I missed the first goal because there was a problem with my season ticket and I had to run down to the ticket office, and then I got into the ground and it was 1 each. And then obviously Tierney scored and the place went bananas. So that was good, especially against them.
Feels like a long time ago, JP. It really does. Some brilliant comments coming in. Thanks everybody for tuning in to A Celtic State of Mind. There's over 1,000 live just now, and we do try and get as many comments up on the screen as possible. For anyone who has been so kind to support the channel by buying merchandise on our website, then be assured that it will be on its way. We've been sending out parcels all over the world. It's great to see people, JP, with the old ACSOM tops on in the States and various other places.
Yeah, that guy that took the picture this morning. His name escapes me, but
Steve Murray.
Steve Murray, yeah, that and I've been to that part of. We stayed with a couple who are friends with over in that part of America, and it's unbelievable. It's all like near Eureka, California, and then we went to the Redwood Forest. That's all around about there, which is Endor, where they filmed Star Wars. So as soon as I saw that coastline, I was like, I know exactly where that is. It's also in the film Nomadland, is it? The Francis McDormand film. Have you seen that? Have you heard of it? It was one that won the Oscar anyway, and it's an amazing film. And there's a bit of that filmed where that guy took that picture on that coastline there. So, fun fact.
Well, we're in good company, ACSOM. I love seeing, the jerseys travelling far and wide. So yes, anyone out there who is waiting on them, they will be coming in. We do have them all in stock. It's just that I'm juggling a few things at the minute, JP. That's all it is. I'm just juggling. That's all it is. Some great comments coming through. Thank you all for getting involved. Stephen McGonigal believes that Frimpong did want to go. Don't kid yourself. Listen, I think that some of these footballers are quite cute in the way that they do it. Like you say, JP, they want to keep the relationship tidy with the Celtic fans. They don't want to be making any enemies. So absolutely, I get that. And Karen Gray picks up on the fact that the board's tongue would have been collectively hanging out, wanting that 10 million quid they would sell their grannies. Well, again, that goes back to some of the points JP was making in terms of the fact that it looks all a bit fractured at the moment. And I think that if the board were 100% behind Ange Postecoglou, then there should be absolutely no hesitation, JP, in getting his men behind him so that he can implement what he's trying to do at Celtic. I've not seen it yet. I've not seen the board backing him 100%. I don't mean in going out and buying players, but obviously in order for him to do what he needs to do, he needs staff, and it doesn't look as though he's getting the staff, unfortunately. Now, you mentioned earlier on James McCarthy, and he has been confirmed as being fit for tonight's game, JP, by Ange, and because, again, of the fact that we've got so many injuries at the moment. Of course, Callum McGregor's going to still be out. There was an outside chance that he might make it. It's been confirmed he's out. McCarthy's going to start again tonight. Now, there was some sympathy against Dundee United. I've seen a lot of comments saying that he was murdered and he's, we should never have given him a 4-year deal, etc. I actually thought that he was a bit unlucky against Dundee United due to the fact that he took 2 heavy tackles, which ultimately finished his participation in the game.
I haven't seen them back, by the way. I've not seen them back. Apparently they were. I mean, I remember it being bad at the game, but I've not seen a replay of it. But
Fuchs, I think, was the worst one. And I thought he went on to actually have a right good game for Dundee United, but that was a sending off, if you ask me. And I think that when I'm looking at the side tonight, there's a few points that I've been making over the last week or so. Juranovic, of course, is out tonight. We've already covered that. But when you're looking at the style of play that Ange is implementing at Celtic, and, it's high tempo, it's a high press, of course. He plays with inverted fullbacks. He likes to play with wingers, getting balls into the box. Whether or not Ayeti's the man to be on the end of those balls, I don't think he is, but we'll come to Ayeti in a few moments. But in order to make that a success, JP, I think what you need is you need 2 wingers who are able to win the ball back. So there needs to be a defensive quality in their game, because you're basically going from attacking and you're transitioning into defence very, very quickly, because you're pounding the opposition in theory. But if that breaks down, you're reverting back to the defensive area. And 2 guys who were brilliant at doing that last season were Ryan Christie and El Yunusi. They were particularly good for offensive players to, win the ball back, turn it back into an attack. Jota and Abada don't have that in their locker. So, if you're going to try and play that high tempo, high press, I think that they're absolutely tremendous going forward. But when it flips and we're then on the back foot, I don't think they're as effective as those 2 players that are no longer at the club. Now, the reason I'm bringing them up when I'm talking about McCarthy is I also think that in order to keep that standard up, you need to have a huge amount of energy in the centre of the park. Now, when you've got Callum McGregor in there, there is a guy that probably done the running of 2 players last season, but he's got the energy. And to use another of the examples, Ryan Christie had that energy when he was playing maybe the number 10. But we've got David Turnbull and Tom Rodgick playing on the same side who don't have that same level of energy. And you've got two wingers who don't have the same defensive attributes. And I think that's a massive part of when it's going well and you're attacking, and that's fantastic, is great because these guys are offensive players. But when the opposition presses us and transition back to us defending, I think that's where we're getting it wrong. And it could well be that we just don't have the personnel that Ange wants in these positions, which is a concern when you consider that three of the guys we've mentioned have been brought in.
100%. I mean, you think of it, Elyounoussi, he did track back. He was strong. I think, in comparison to Jota, I mean, Jota's built like a fiver. So, he's not going to be that sort of tenacious, strong guy to go back and win the ball. Christie, for as much as he wasn't, an absolute unit, he was tenacious and, would go in, looking to win the ball and, would, sometimes go in quite hard as well. I mean, I remember quite a few Christie tasty tackles on opposition players. So, I mean, the two of them, like you say, are good going forward. I felt I watched Jota at the end of the game and he sat on the deck and he just smashed both his fists against the ground. And you could tell he was absolutely raging to have put in the effort that he did and not got a victory. Because, I don't think that was for show. Sometimes players like histrionics, especially when they've been tackled and they roll about for about, 5 minutes, a la Vitor Bayer in the UEFA Cup final. How could we forget that? And Martin O'Neill's account of that night on BBC for some game or whatever. But I know Jota was definitely raging, and I did feel for him because he did. But there was a point in the second half where Jota wasn't in the game at all, and then he suddenly came to life again for the last sort of 15, 20 minutes. He was in it and he was, pinging shots and, beating men and doing chops and getting crosses in for nobody to score. But yeah, I mean, it's just whether or not those players were Postecoglou's signings, or if he's just, again, if we're back at this point where we're signing players and then presenting them to the manager to work with, which is everything that we didn't want to happen at Celtic, and all the things that we were saying all the way through the lead up to a new manager coming. We were like, it's got to be everybody's doing their own job. Everybody's, sort of has their own remit, and that's how a successful organisation works. Is when you've got an expert in each field who does their job, and all the dots are joined. So you then start to wonder: are these players Ange Postecoglou's? And I guess we will not know that really until things go bad.
Well, that's always the case. You find out after the event, things go awry. Yeah. And even then, you sometimes get two sides of the story. So on the Frimpong case, you get Lenny's side of the story against Jeremy Frimpong's side of the story. They don't always marry up. Mm-hmm. But I do have sympathy because there's no doubting that the players that have come in are of a high quality. I mean, Abada, I think, has been a revelation. He went off the boil a wee bit. Hopefully he's coming back into it now. Jota has been so impressive, I think, and I hope that continues. But if you've got a manager who's so fixed in his view of how his team's going to play, regardless of how good they are, if they don't fit his system, it might not work. And that's a big, big concern at the moment. Now, Robert comes back in, Robert Hyland, who was commenting last week as well. McCarthy will always be too slow for Ange's system and was never an Ange signing. Now, again, I think you're probably right in the first part, Robert. He probably is too slow. I don't think McCarthy's a bad player. I just don't know if he's suited to that high-tempo style of play. He's obviously going to be playing tonight in any case because there's such a dearth of midfielders to choose from. Whether or not he was an Ange signing, we'll probably never know, and we'll probably have to speculate. But I would take an educated guess to say that he probably wasn't. And he's probably been on a Celtic want list or scouting report for some time. as has Joe Hart, who I think has been an excellent addition. So it goes two ways, JP. Sometimes you get a player in that the manager's had nothing to do with and they become a revelation, and nobody's going to argue with that. And it can go the other way. Now, one thing that we will have to discuss is the fact that, again, Ajeti was a point of discussion last week, and for all the wrong reasons. I think he probably last season dropped down to third choice. We spoke about it time and time again. Eddie was always the first choice. Griffiths was probably ahead of Ajeti many times in the pecking order, and then it was Ajeti. And of course, we also had Klamala at the club, and we had Bayo out on loan. Now we've got a situation where we've brought in Kyogo and Giacomakis, but both of them have been unfit over the last few weeks, and Ajeti has had to get on with it and play every single minute. Dundee United was an example of the Ajeti that a lot of people are not convinced by. He didn't look like this penalty box striker that we've been told that he is. He was getting chances in the box, he was missing them. And in particular, the one that's now going to become infamous, I think, from 3 yards out, JP, where the ball comes to him at a good pace and he puts it over the bar. And there was a suggestion by Declan on the the Tuesday Bulletin this week, where he said that it looks as though Jota and Abada are playing a style of football that might suit Giacomakis, but they're playing it just now and it's not suiting Ajeti. Do you buy that, or do you think that it was just a bad day at the office or Ajeti, or have you seen enough to think it's never going to work for this guy?
He cut a sorry figure on Sunday. You know, I was looking at his body language, and he looked like the world was against him. And you know, when you're in any walk of life and you start to feel weight pressing down against you, and you start to think, maybe I'm not good enough for this, and maybe that's got into his head a bit. You know, that he's not. You know, he'll be well aware of Celtic strikers of the past. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's not going to be, he's not going to be ignorant to Henrik Larsson, say, or Chris Sutton. I mean, there's constant reminders about these guys all the time and how great they were for Celtic. And it's quite a high bar, isn't it? You know, when you know that there's been these guys in the past that have like done the business week in, week out. And if you don't do that, and you're being given games week in, week out, and you're not scoring the goals, then you might start to doubt yourself. And I think that might, I mean, it's complete speculation, of course, but it might be the case with him, because there's no doubt that he was at one time a good player. West Ham didn't pay the money they paid for him for a laugh. We didn't pay the money we paid for him for a laugh, I would hope. And so, you know, there's been a player in there at some point, and then now you've just got this guy who's, you know, as soon as a striker misses one or two chances like that, it can go one of two ways. It either makes you work even harder, or your head can go down. And I think his head's down at the moment. So he'll be playing tonight. And again, as I go back to, you know, the Scales example, this is a chance for him to you know, because he scored away in Betis, didn't he? He scored a goal and won a penalty. Yeah. And won a penalty. But that was an away game. So everyone's like, oh, yes, Ajeti's, you know, doing the business. But it wasn't in front of the Celtic fans, because there was no Celtic fans there. Obviously, there would have been a sprinkling of Celtic fans in amongst the home support. But it's a different kettle of fish. If you do the business at Celtic Park, we've all seen the sort of lionisation of a player that can happen at Celtic Park. And, you know, it's on a big night. If you do it on a big night, people remember it, and people give you, and you win credit in the bank with our support. You win credit in the bank that will allow you an off day every now and then. Mm-hmm. But he's just had a series of off days in the league against what we would deem lower quality opposition than Betis. So you're like, he did it against Betis away in what would be deemed a difficult arena, but then you've not been able to do it in domestic games, which is the bread and butter. So he's got an opportunity tonight to through necessity. He's got an opportunity tonight, not because there's any, you know, there's nobody else to play, so he has to play. So immediately the onus is on him to score the goals tonight, and I'd love him to score tonight. I really would. You know, I as I said last week, he's here until January at the very least.
Yeah.
And we need him to contribute. You know, there's no point in giving up on him or giving him loads of stick or anything like that. The guy obviously wants to, you know, no player goes into that park and doesn't want to score a goal if you're a striker. We've seen how he has enjoyed goals. You know, he enjoyed the goals against Betis. So, yeah, and we'll see what happens tonight.
Absolutely, yeah. And the thing with that, again, being a confidence player, I think you could see the body language. It was so obvious, JP, that it was affecting him. If he scores a goal this evening and we go ahead, the question is, going back to the Betis game, can we manage that? Can we manage that situation? Because that was a big question. We go 2-0 up. And, against what everybody thought was going to happen that night, away from home, in a cauldron, no Celtic fans there. We go 2-0 up, but we couldn't manage it. And by the way, it could well have just been that we were up against a particularly good side who were always going to turn it back round. We've seen it last season against Milan. We used that example a few times where we go 2 goals up, we get beat 4-2. Can the Celtic side handle going up? Going ahead tonight, can we then switch that to a different style of play where we can actually manage that game out?
It kind of feels like a runaway car that, you know, hits top speed and you're enjoying it, and then all of a sudden you can't brake, you know, and like you're just an absolute freewheeling, you know, chaos going along a road, and that's what we feel like when we go up in Europe, because you just get that adrenaline buzz of like, oh my God, we're 2-0 up. And you as a fan, I mean, I remember looking around the pub that night against Betis and everybody was in complete disbelief. And then there's just that kind of like roller coaster of like, how do we stay in this cart before we come flying off? And then, yeah, I mean, obviously what happened. I mean, I think most people have said when they scored their first goal, that we were like, they all thought we were going to lose. Like, that is not the mentality that a team should have when they're 2-0 up in a European match. Like, as soon as you lose a goal, most of the support are going, oh, well, that's us beat then, because we've conceded a goal. They're going to score an equaliser and then they'll probably score a winner as well. Like, that's completely bananas to have that kind of thought process. But it is currently what ours is. So when or if we score a goal first tonight, everybody's first thoughts are going to be, oh, when's the equaliser going to come? And how's it going to come about? Is it going to be a penalty? Is it going to be a daft mistake? Is it going to be this, that? So, you know, it's a true test of the team's character as to what we could do if we did go 1-0 up. I mean, we're saying that. We don't know what's going to happen in the game tonight. But like you said, it's anybody's guess as to whether or not we can manage it. And it will be a true test of what's been worked on and training and what the manager's instilled as to how we cope with going a goal up, because that is a crucial thing that we need to, surely that's been talked about over and over and over in whatever squad meetings they have and things like that, you know, and working on things like, you know, like Saturday, for example, down at Manchester United against Villa, like Man United conceded a goal in the 87th or 88th minute or something like that. And Melly pointed out that it was as a result of whatever they instructed the team to do at the corner. It was Austin McPhee is the assistant coach and is the set piece coach. So whatever it was, they worked on something in training at that very moment. And they did it. I'm not entirely sure what they did, but whatever they did worked, and they got the goal that effectively won them the game. So they would have, I mean, you like to think that a team of our level has plans for things like that, and then things to do once you're a goal up. Mm-hmm. This is how you play the game. This is how we will play the game once we're a goal up. You know, rather than it just being like the wheels come off and then we concede a goal and then we concede another goal and then it's just like a hard luck story. It's like, oh well, we went 1-0 up, but ultimately it came to nothing.
No, you're right, and it's not the first time this season either. I mean, you look at Midtjylland going a goal up twice and eventually losing the tie. So there is a mentality there, as well as that organisational element of this is how you manage it if we go ahead, and hopefully we will go ahead tonight. Thomas Todd comes in to say to speak about the leaks that appear to be coming from Celtic Park regarding Ange. We don't know how valid the information is at this moment, but it always concerns me when there is apparent leaks. I mean, last season you were, regularly getting the team news via WhatsApp, before the team was announced. The Athletic spoke about someone in the dressing room giving them information. That kind of stuff, absolutely, I think it disgusts me at a football club. You should not be taking anything from within that inner sanctum of Celtic and sharing it elsewhere. But we know what happens because a lot of the information comes your way, JP, and it gets shared with you. And in relation to any of the kind of rumours flying about, it's difficult to even comment on them because you don't know how valid they are. However, what I would say, I seen a very interesting thread that was posted by Celtic, shared last week, I think it was, and they were talking about how there was this narrative that had been put out in relation to Dominic Mackay's capability or otherwise to fulfil his role. And according to this thread, that information had been fed to certain people within Celtic fan media. And I was looking at it going, well, that's interesting because obviously the club may see that as an opportunity to create a narrative, but I can absolutely guarantee that ACSOM certainly weren't a part of that discussion. So we weren't fed any kind of information whatsoever, and have not been fed any information about the departure of Dominic Mackay. But it was an interesting one because it would appear that kind of thing is happening. Information is being leaked, JP. But I want to concentrate on the game tonight, and there's a couple of partnerships I want to talk about. So we know that Ajeti will start. There's probably a question mark about the left back, as we've discussed. Tony Ralston gets the right back's jersey because there is no one else to play there. Joe Hart will be starting as a captain tonight, no doubt about it. Central defence, we have played 7 games in Europe this season and we've had 5 different partnerships at centre-half. Only once has Starfelt and Carter Vickers lined up in Europe together. But I'm getting to that stage where I'm thinking that is your first choice centre-half partnership at the moment. Are you quite happy with that going into the game tonight?
I don't really think we've got many options there, have we? I mean, would Welsh come back in for a game of this magnitude after he's been playing Carter Vickers and Starfelt as his regular centre halves? I don't know. I think it was probably going to be the two of them in centre half. I don't see him changing that now. They've started the last 2 games. It would be weird if they suddenly didn't start tonight. So that would be the go-to guys there. And then midfield is going to be the same as well because what do you change in the midfield, in the centre of midfield? It's so mad that we're relying on Rogic. After Rogic being here for so long and never being a first choice player, and suddenly you're just, expecting this guy whose battery life is questionable. You're expecting him to sort of go the full hog and play the majority of the 90 minutes or whatever and produce the goods. And he's never done that. He's never been that player. No. And how does he suddenly become this player? Because he's got an Australian coach. I mean, that's naive in the extreme to think that would make such a difference. It's like, oh, well, they know each other. It doesn't matter. It's still the same player. The manager's new, but the player's the same. And if he wasn't able to do that over the course of his Celtic career so far, then expecting him to do it now. I mean, he frustrated the life out of me on Sunday. Always just looking for that extra touch, always trying to find the perfect square to hit a shot or put a pass away. And it's just, he holds onto the ball just a bit too long. And I watched him as well, and he looked a bit kind of, oh well, that I've just given it my best there, and my best isn't good enough, and that's not going to fly really long term.
The big thing for me with Rogic, and that was the other partnership I was going to talk to you about, is I'm not too sure that, again, going back to the point I made, that we can go out tonight with Turnbull and Rogic starting. So if McCarthy starts and he is your number 6, because we're doing it all by numbers now, you've got to get someone in beside him who has that energy level that allows the flowing football that Ange seeks. David Turnbull's not that player. He doesn't have that energy. He's very much like Rogic in that there comes a point in the game, and you notice it with Turnbull because he starts losing the ball. His ball retention is excellent normally. And then he gets to that 65, 70 minute point. He starts giving the ball away far too freely and too easily. So I think there's a question mark around those two players. I think we can only go into this game tonight with one of them. And then it asks you the question, it begs the question rather, who plays alongside McCarthy? Because, I mean, the other options, of course, and they are options and they need to be discussed, near Beaton and Sorrow. Now, who gives you more energy? Sorrow. I know that he's always thrown himself into tackles. He's always looking to get, you're looking at him, expecting him to get booked at some point in the game. I think a lot of that comes down to a discipline that he seems to lack at the moment. But if it's an energy that you're looking for, and I think we really do need that, particularly with McCarthy and the pace that he plays the game at, JP, I get the feeling that Ange's going to start Sorrow tonight. And then it really is a toss of a coin over who plays as the number 10, be that Rogic or Turnbull. What's your thoughts on that?
It's a dicey move starting Sorrow in a game of this magnitude, because we cannot afford to, everybody says it, and it's becoming now like parlay amongst Celtic supporters that, Sorrow is just good for a booking. It's printing money, isn't it, to back Sorrow for a booking if he's starting. And you don't want to have one of your centre midfielders on a booking early on in the game, which is what tends to happen with him. It would be slightly hypocritical for me to then say, I think we should play Beaton instead. But, I would have Beaton before I'd have Sorrow, purely for the fact that he's not as, in midfield anyway, he's not as rash in his, his tackling and his decision making. Playing him at centre half is a different kettle of fish. I'd never want to see him play at centre half ever again. We've seen that tested and fail far too many times. But again, through necessity, he's much like Ayeti up front. He's a international experienced midfielder. I'm not saying he's the guy that's going to rile the troops or anything like that. I don't think he's that type of player. He doesn't, stir me up as a fan in terms of like get me going or anything like that. He's not a Scott Brown. But if it's going to be a choice between Beaton and Sorrow, it would be Beaton for me. I just think Sorrow's just too much. It's too dicey to play Sorrow in this. But it just shows you how little he's got to work with. These are the players that we are talking about. It goes back to Livingston last week, and you saying, Ralston and Montgomery, the options to come off the bench, and they're just like, wow, this is our squad right now. It's drastic. It's so far and away from, Lustig, Tierney, and the rest. It's just
stop it. We're going to have to get the old DVDs out just to remind ourselves of what a treble looks like. But JP, the point remains: you just need to look at tonight's bench. And when you look at that bench tonight, and young Moffat may well be on that bench, and various others, it's going to be young. It's going to be lacking in experience. There's going to be a real dearth of experience on that bench. If Beaton's on it, he'll bring that up a wee bit because he's made so many appearances over an 8-year period. But you're looking at that, right? If McCarthy starts, and he probably will because he's an influential player, and you'll be looking at him to come back into the side, I would guess. And you're then struggling to find someone to play alongside him because you're also second guessing which of these players suits Angie's style of play. And I don't think Beaton does, because he's too slow when he gets the ball. The tempo drops every time he gets the ball. There's a lot of stuff that he can do well. He's a good passer of the ball, etc., but not at pace. Sorrow, like you say, you're in that situation where if he does, as he did the last time, he gets a booking in 7 minutes, he's on a tightrope for the rest of the game. You're probably looking to replace him. So you're going for your second choice anyway. Then you're looking at, right, who do you play as your number 10? Is it Tommy Rogic or is it David Turnbull? These are the dilemmas.
Yeah, I know, but it just feels like he's playing with fire, doesn't it? It's just like throwing about a ball that's on fire and hoping his hands don't get burned. It's just this wild that we're in such a predicament. But it all traces back to this search for the new manager and not getting him in place. And we all predicted that, the first Champions League qualifier was going to be an absolute, whitey in terms of the personnel that we put out in that game. Despite all the signings, even though we've made so many signings, we're still in a position going into a European game playing a team that is made up of previous bit part players or cameo players in the Celtic squad, and we're now having to include them alongside many debutants who haven't got the experience of playing for Celtic over a course of a season or a couple of seasons or whatever. So it's just an absolute cocktail of inexperience, and again, it points to the fact that we've got absolutely no right to get anything from this game tonight. So if the players rise to the challenge along with the support, the support's going to be there, then it's anybody's guess as to what happens. But we really, really need to be completely disciplined and on the ball for every single minute of the game tonight, because it's like concentration levels are going to have to be so good. Mm-hmm. Because I know there's been a lot of narrative in the media, McCoist in particular, saying, this isn't the Bayer Leverkusen side that Rangers faced a couple of years ago, and they've not got Kai Havertz and all the rest of it. They're second in the Bundesliga. That's enough for me. I don't need to know who or what is playing in their team to know that if a team is currently sitting going into the end of September second in the Bundesliga, I know it's early doors in the season, but this is a good side we're playing tonight, no question. Absolutely.
And as I've said before, this manager, he's a rising star.
Yeah,
what he done at Young Boys is probably still being felt yet, but it was him that did that. He built that, and he looks obviously early stages that he wants to do the same with Bayer Leverkusen. Now, one final thing before we go: former Bayer Leverkusen and Celtic player Andreas Thom was in our mind when we were creating this concept jersey. It is the final one that we have at the moment, although I've got another couple on order from all over the world. You won't believe the Adidas ones that I've managed to find in some far-flung places as Russia and Poland. But there will be ACSOM jerseys very soon. I want you to ask a question, and the first correct answer wins the jersey. JP Mason.
How many caps did Andreas Thom get for his country?
Wow.
And I believe that might have been before the split, maybe? No, I don't.
Here's the question then, right? He was the first ever East German to play for a unified Germany. Mm-hmm. So are we talking about combined for East Germany and Germany? Are we talking about combined international caps?
Combined
caps, right? Here we go then. So he's played for East Germany and Germany how many times? It's a good question coming in for JP. I'm just checking it myself.
I love that. Remember that goal he scored against Dundee United in the semi-final? Was it the semi-final? Yeah.
Yep.
I watched that in my house. My dad was out in the garden and I ran out to say, we're going to get a replay. And then the next thing, Pierre scored and we won and we got to the final. That was
tremendous. That was tremendous with the old temporary stand behind the goals.
Wow.
Right. I know what the answer is. It's combined caps. So the caps that he won both for the unified Germany and East Germany. And here are some of the guesses that are wrong. So James Wilson, 53. Higher. Tosh Koglu, Junior Malone, 13. Higher than that. William Peden, 6. No, he actually won quite a few. Pat Byrnes, that's the closest we've had so far. Not as many. Donny Boy is 92. But I can see Paddy Livery, 1888, not as many as that, pal. There was definitely the correct answer coming in, and the first one that I've seen is this individual here. 61 combined. Correct, F and JC. You're watching on Twitch. Andreas Thom won 61 international caps for Unified Germany and East Germany. And he was the first East German cap to win a cap for Germany.
Is that right?
So, yeah, he was, aye.
Wow.
So there you go. There you have it. And in actual fact, I think he was involved. Remember when Scotland played Germany and Scotland were wearing that salmon pink shirt with the blue stripes and Duncan Ferguson done an overhead kick, etc. I'm pretty sure he was in that squad. I've got that programme kicking about. I'm sure he was in that squad. So you are the winner. You win this jersey. Now, in order to claim your prize, contact me via email on pauljohndykes@gmail.com. That is where anybody who wants to get in touch directly can do so. And you can also do it on Twitter, Facebook, and various other places that we exist on social media. Well done. That's the final prize of September. We move into a new month, JP, and the prize for next month, if you subscribe on YouTube, you'll be in for a prize draw to win a signed and framed Bobby Lennox print. So I'm just taking a wee note of your Twitch handle there. Get in touch, pauljohndykes@gmail.com, and you have won the Andy Tom jersey, as we are calling it. JP, thank you for that, the quiz master. Thanks for everybody getting involved. It's been well over 1,000 there for a bit of chat on Celtic. A few people asking about how we go about getting involved. Well, we're going to call them, I think, ACSOM cult bulletins, where you can get involved in a discussion. It'll be exactly the same, but we just won't put it out live, just in case. We've had a few issues before putting things out live when it's not the ACSOM contributors. So, not that we don't trust you, and we'll get you involved if you want to get involved with 2 or 3 ACSOM contributors, and we'll have a good chat about Celtic and you as a Celtic fan as well. So get involved. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Good luck to Celtic tonight. Hopefully we can get that result, JP. That will give us all a wee bit of confidence moving on to Sunday at Pittodrie. All that's left for me to say is thank you to JP Mason for joining me on A Celtic State of Mind.